Welcome to everyone tuning into this talk. I will tell you about the so-called Science Summaries, one of the flagship outreach products of the LIGO Virgo KAGRA collaborations. We've been making waves in the public attention for a few years with the topic of gravitational waves, which have, of course, been reaching Earth for billions of years. And even though Einstein described them in 1916, we've only actually been hearing them with our detectors since 2015. The biggest public waves we've made so far were, of course, with the first gravitational wave detection from a binary black hole merger announced in 2016. Then in 2017, the first binary neutron star multi-messenger detection, and the Nobel Prize for Weiss, Zorn, and Barish later that year. More recently, we are now up to 50 events in our most recent transient catalog, GWTC2, covering this wide range of masses in the so-called stellar graveyard, compact stellar remnants, and there's more to come from a full analysis of our latest third observing run. The LVK is a global community that runs a global network of 5 detectors, and these 3 collaborations are working together. In total, there's over 2,500 members of these collaborations in many institutions and countries, each with their own expertise, but sharing data, tools, and publication credits together. Education and public outreach-wise, we have rigorous programs at the individual observatories, at most local member institutions, and within each collaboration, plus a joint global and hence mostly online activities. Any materials we prepare for the public need to span audiences from the local to the global level. And especially on the global level, we always have to consider different interests, cultural attitudes, language barriers, and different education systems around the globe. One of our main outputs are these science summaries, where besides the basics of gravitational wave science, like Einstein's ideas, how the detectors work, and what astrophysical sources we are looking for, we also want to tell the public about the specific research we do and what our actual scientific papers are about. Counting from 2016, we have about 40 papers each from the first 2 observing runs and 18 from the third one so far, still counting. And the science summaries summarizing these results for the general public have been published for almost all of these. The intent is to make the goals and the results of our publicly funded research understandable to students and to the non-scientists, the wide public who eventually support our research. There's a collaboration commitment producing these for each of our papers, now also fully integrated in the internal project planning and editorial team responsibilities to ensure these are delivered on time and in high quality. The main portal to access them is for the LIGO.org website, where you can click in the top menu on Our Science Explained and then on Science Summaries. They are advertised via news posts by each of the collaboration, press releases and media kits when we do them usually include these summaries, and of course advertised over social media channels as well, where, for example, the LIGO Twitter recently passed 100,000 followers. We also hand out hard copies at local events. What do these summaries look like? We always have a website version and a PDF for download and print, usually 2 to 4 pages in PDF to give you an idea of the length, with a lot of illustrations, both artist illustrations and plots from the actual papers, and links for people to learn more about different concepts covered in these summaries. Handing them out at public face-to-face events has always been a big staple before the pandemic, and we hope it will be again, all across the globes, wherever LVK members do their outreach at science fairs, university open days, conferences, school events, and so on. The translations are really the part I want to focus on today, because they give you the global perspective on this. Most of global science and science communication is, of course, done in English, but to reach the broadest and most diverse audiences around the globe, what we need to do is bring our science to people in their own languages. The first translations of LIGO Virgo results were done into Spanish back in 2014. Then the effort significantly picked up since 2016 with our big announcements. And by now we have at least 1 summary translated into 22 different languages, which were listed here on the right. As a record case, GW190521, the detection of a very massive binary black hole merger, that summary was covered in 16 different languages. And you can see here all the diverse languages and scripts, just the headings of these summaries. It's very important to highlight that this is a completely volunteer-driven effort with very few LVK members who are being paid for outreach, and most of the translations being done by scientists and also by students in their free time, just out of enthusiasm. As a takeaway for people who listen into this from other collaborations, it's noteworthy that there's a big talent pool automatically available in international scientific collaborations like ours for both outreach in general and translation specifically, and people just need to be motivated and organized to get an effort like this off the ground, but it's certainly always possible for any such collaboration. I have here a bunch of nice quotes from translation volunteers. You can look at them a bit more in detail if you want later, both including their native languages and the English version. I just highlight a few quotes here. One is from an undergraduate student at my university here in Spain, who highlights that the science summary translations gives the opportunity for everyone to understand science. Then Hisaki Shinkai, who does Japanese translations, highlights that doing the translations is also very suitable for undergraduate students and a good learning experience for those translators, as well as for the people who eventually read it. Nicolas Arnaud, translating into French, highlights that explaining our results in his mother tongue is his way of giving back to his community, which I find a very nice sentiment. And then there's a pair of translators who've made the news independently as well. Sharon Yellowfly and her son Corey Gray, one of the Caltech scientists. Sharon translates into the Blackfoot language and highlights how this is a culture-affirming experience for the Blackfoot people in America. So I think this gives a nice overview of the diverse audiences and the diverse people we have contributing to this. I will also include a few translation and summary statistics. On top here in the first plot, you see the number of summaries we've had over the years, typically 10 to 20, matching the number of papers being put out, depending on how the data comes in. And by now, there's, for the vast majority of them, at least one or more translation, as you can see by the orange bars compared to the blue one. Then in the second plot, you see the total number of translations and different number of languages covered. And you see it really picked up in 2016. And then in 2020, in our record year, we had over 100 translations in over 20 languages. Now 2021, of course, is still young, so that bar is still growing, but already looking good. We also looked a bit at the page views for our online sites, but noticed that there are underestimates of total accesses because direct download of PDF files when they're linked from news items or social media accounts are not counted in here. The numbers maybe don't look that high by global internet standards, but if we compare, for example, the last two summaries here, which were published in fall 2020, compared with the 12 months overall start page views, it's 10% of that. So they are among our most popular articles online. We certainly should work on improving the reach online. We see large spikes at publication date and then very little later attention. So we should work on that, but also keep in mind that these already have a much longer life as printed resources at local events, and also that there's a very nice multiplier effect from science journalists using these summaries as source material for their articles in widely circulated magazines and newspapers, as we know firsthand from talking to many of them. Also, the translations themselves are generally provided just as PDFs for download, so they are unfortunately not counted in these numbers at all, and we know that lots more people access those as well. To summarize what I've talked to you about so far is that these summaries are really one of our main ways of explaining our LIGO Virgo KAGRA collaboration science, gravitational waves, to the global public, covering that science and the global detector network, everything we do, both for non-scientists, students, and also colleagues from other fields. We know they appreciate these as well. We don't cover just the basics of the field, but the actual content of each scientific paper that we publish. They get disseminated both online and, when possible, at face-to-face outreach events. That also includes classrooms, and for student training and research groups, they're usually great first resources to give to new research students. The translations are a particularly crucial ingredient to reaching a diverse global audience. And from the inside perspective, writing and translating summaries like these is also very beneficial for collaboration members, both senior and students, to develop their outreach skills. Overall, this effort has gathered a lot of momentum in recent years, but we still want to work more on formatting, automation, process management, and so on to scale up to our growing detection and publication rates and to further increase our global reach. Thank you for your attention, and I'd be very happy to take some questions and discuss later on. Bye.